Anime fans, the first topic I want to discuss is the rumors going around that the MCU X-Men reboot might not have Wolverine in the first X-Men movie. Now, I went over a little bit of this in my last video when I was talking about the fact that they're having writers piss takes for the X-Men MCU reboot. But I'm gonna go with the reasons why I love the idea of Wolverine not being in the first X-Men movie. Reason number one is Hugh Jackman is still playing the character. He's going to be playing Wolverine again in Deadpool 3, and there's obviously rumors going around that he might appear in King Dynasty with Secret Wars, since those are going to be the end of the multiverse saga. And whether it's even just Deadpool 3, he's so associated with the character when it comes to fans, and he's the only one that's ever played the character, that I think it would be a good idea to give that, like, if you're going to introduce a new Wolverine, to have a gap in between where you give people some time before you put a new Wolverine in there when it comes to whoever plays MCU Wolverine. So I think that would be one reason, is that you give fans some time in between so you don't introduce a new Wolverine in there while Hugh Jackman is still playing the character. Number two is that I talked about this a little bit in my past video, like I said. As much as I love those first two original X-Men movies, X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, when it comes to the main X-Men movies of the Fox X-Men movies, I've also felt like they didn't do a great job when it came to ensembles, when it came to giving every character the right amount of time. Because it did feel like characters like Cyclops, Storm kind of got a little bit like shoved to the side. I mean, Cyclops is only in the beginning of X2 and the ending of X2, and then in the middle chunk of that movie, he's not in it all that much. In the X3, they killed him off. Storm didn't get a whole lot to do in the first X-Men movie. And I just think, personally for me, the X-Men movies became so much about Wolverine in the Fox movies. I mean, the first X-Men movie is pretty much Wolverine and Rogue's story. X2, the whole plot revolves around Wolverine's past, and the villain is basically the villain in the movie is the one that gave Wolverine his medal. So again, it's connected. The whole plot was pretty much Wolverine's backstory in X2. Then X-Men Days of Future Past, and I didn't mind this change for the movie, but in the comics, it's Shadowcat who decides to time travel in that storyline. And obviously, in the movie, they made it Wolverine, and it made sense for the movie, and I love that movie. But even in that movie, they made Wolverine a big part of that story. So it just, I mean, even a movie like X-Men Apocalypse, which I think is just fine. I don't hate it or love it. But one of the weak points of that movie was Wolverine's cameo in X-Men Apocalypse, where they showed him in a Weapon X suit. Like, it was cool to see, but I was like, that whole felt like a side story that had nothing to do with Apocalypse in that movie. So it even felt like they were trying to force Wolverine in, as they put forcing Wolverine into an X-Men movie. So I just think I just would like to see an X-Men movie where it feels more like a team, where every character gets enough screen time. And as a Cyclops fan, I would like to see a movie that actually really shows how great of a character Cyclops is. Even characters like Storm or other X-Men characters that didn't get the time in the Fox movies. Another reason, and this is the last one, is that it would be more accurate towards the comics. Look, Wolverine wasn't part of the team originally in the comics. His first time he popped up in the comics was in a Hawk comic where he was fighting the Incredible Hulk. He didn't join the team until way later on in the comics. So that's another, is that it would be more accurate towards the comics. And as a comic fan, I would like to see a movie evolve around the original X-Men team, because we never got that in the Fox movies. Like, the original X-Men team that you start out with in the comics was Cyclops, Jean, Iceman, Angel, and Beast. I would love this movie just about those original five, the original team in the comics, because it would be something different from the Fox movies, and it would be something we haven't seen as an X-Men fan. So it would be more accurate towards the comics. So those are the reasons why I just think I personally would love the idea for Wolverine not to be in. Now, the one reason you could argue against that is the fact that Wolverine is the most popular X-Men character. What do you ask, like, what are you, a comic fan or a non-comic fan? You ask somebody that question, the character they know the most is Wolverine. Even if you're a non-comic fan, that is the most popular X-Men character. So I can see that side of it too, but I think as somebody who just kind of like wants to see other X-Men characters get the focus, especially Cyclops, I would personally love the idea of not having Wolverine in the first movie and introducing him later on in the MCU. The next thing I want to discuss is the crowd trailer for Request Silent Night. And I know this movie's directed by John Woo. Now, I haven't seen too many John Woo films. Like, he did Face Off, which I thought was great. And then he directed Mission Impossible 2, which I think is terrible, and the only Mission Impossible movie I don't like. I know he's directed tons of other movies, but those are only two movies I've seen of his. So I'm not too familiar with his filmography. But overall, I thought this was a fun, over the top trailer. Like, I thought the action looks really entertaining. Like the fact it's kind of like Christmas. It kind of reminded me of Violent Night a little bit with the violence in the movie. So again, this trailer wasn't. I didn't think this trailer was like fantastic, but I think the trailer just looked really entertaining personally to me. So I would say check out the trailer for Silent Night. It looks like just a fun, over the top Christmas movie, in my opinion. Next thing I want to discuss is I watched Disney's Haunted Mansion movie. Now, let me say this: I don't like the Eddie Murphy one. I think that movie's terrible. I think this movie was better than that. It's not great. It's not like memorable either. But the positives I'll say about this movie is that I thought the ghosts looked visually cool in the movie. There was maybe once in a while the comedy worked for me. I think everybody gives a good performance in the movie. The kid's really good. I also do like the fact there's some emotional moments part of the story in this movie. So I like the fact that there was there was actually an emotional element towards the story in this Haunted Mansion movie. Now the negatives with this movie is that it's just not very memorable. Like, the characters are fine. They're so small in this movie. They're not like, they don't stand out. The story doesn't stand out. It's not like, it does nothing that's like bad. This movie doesn't do anything that's like, that annoyed me or I thought was like terrible. I mean, the comedy at times I do think is really flat. It misses more than it hits with the comedy. But overall, I think the story was fine. The characters are fine. It's just not really all that memorable of a movie. When it comes, I know Jay Leno played the main ghost in this. Now he can't. I mean, I can't really judge his performance because he's basically like a CGI in this movie. But overall, like, I thought the cast did a good job. Like I said, they're not the most memorable characters. It's not the most memorable story. But overall, I thought it was a decent, spooky, comedy, haunted house movie. So at the end of the day, I would recommend Haunted Mansion. It's not great. It's not the most memorable movie. I'm not going to go back and rewatch it again. But I thought it was a decent time, and it was better than the Eddie Murphy one. Next thing I want to discuss is I watched the movie Sound of Freedom. Now, I heard a whole bunch of controversial stuff about this movie when it came out because of the subject matter. Let me say this first: is that look, this movie has an important story to tell. But just because a movie has an important story to tell, that doesn't mean you can't criticize that movie. Okay, film. I always say this about film: it's subjective. And I notice like some people that reviewed this movie on YouTube will get like kind of like people would just like they would get like basically hate from people if you criticize this movie if you didn't like it or thought it was so in the middle. And people seem to get that is because you don't like the movie or you liked it but didn't love it that you support human trafficking. So that's what the subject matter is. It's a story about this guy saving these kids that are being human trafficking. So when we start with the positives, I think the main guy is good at this. He gives a good performance. I don't think his character is the most interesting. His character's not bad. I think his character's fine in this movie, but it wasn't like I didn't find myself like completely invested in this character. I thought his character was just okay in this. And like I said, it's an important story to tell. Awesome, nice emotional moments in the movie. Biggest problem I have with this movie is the pacing. This movie has very bad pacing when it comes to how slow it is. It's a very slow movie. And I don't have a problem with slow movies if the story's, really good and I'm really invested in the characters and story. But again, the characters were fine in it. Like, overall, I think this was a decent movie. It's not. I know there's a lot of people that really love this movie too out there, and again, I think this was an important story to tell. And this movie does, like I said, the performances are good. The story's decent, but I wasn't like blown away by this movie either. And like I said, the pacing really hurts this movie. It's just incredibly slow a lot of times. But overall, I would recommend Sound of Freedom. I think it's overall a decent movie. It's not great. It's not going to end up being one of my favorite movies personally, but I would recommend checking it out. Until next time, movie fans.